The USS Valor sat silent in the harbor, her steel heart still just days before a critical humanitarian mission. Engineers, mechanics, and naval experts had crawled through her every chamber for weeks, but the engine, once the pride of the fleet, refused to roar back to life. Tensions ran high. Time was slipping away, and without the Valor, thousands of storm-ravaged families overseas would be left stranded without aid. Admiral Russell Hayes stood on the dock, shoulders heavy with defeat. At 61, he had seen wars, disasters, and miracles. But this was beyond anything protocol or precision could solve. That night, haunted by the ticking clock and the silent giant in the water, the Admiral sat alone in his office. He stared at an old, fading photograph on his desk. It showed a younger him alongside his best friend, Chief Engineer Petty Officer Daniel Morris, a man with oil-stained hands, a booming laugh, and an uncanny connection to engines. Daniel had died in a tragic accident during a rescue mission 15 years ago, but his legacy still whispered through the ship's hallways. The Admiral remembered something Daniel once said, almost laughing as he spoke, "Machines are like people, Russ. They don't always need fixing, they need understanding." On impulse, the Admiral pulled open a drawer and found a worn envelope with an address scribbled in Daniel's handwriting, his daughter's last known residence. Her name was Ellie Morris. Ellie had left the Navy world behind after her father's death, channeling her talents into teaching engineering at a small vocational college in Virginia. She lived simply, avoided media, and rarely spoke about her past. So when she opened her front door to see Admiral Hayes in full uniform, she froze. "Ma'am," he said, removing his cap, "I need your help. And I need your heart more than your hands." At first, Ellie resisted. Her father's loss had carved deep scars she'd never fully faced. "I'm not a miracle worker," she whispered. "I'm not him." But Hayes looked her square in the eye. "No. You're you. And that's exactly why I came." 2 days later, Ellie stood before the Valor. As she stepped aboard, memories flooded her, of childhood visits, of oil-slicked decks and stories beneath stars. She could almost hear her father's voice echo in the engine room. She ran her fingers along the cold metal, not as an engineer, but as a daughter remembering love. The team of experts watched skeptically as Ellie asked for the schematics and cleared the room. For 12 hours, she listened more than she tinkered. She traced the wiring, whispered under her breath, even paused to hum an old tune her father used to sing while working. She wasn't repairing the ship, she was reconnecting with it. Then, just before dawn, she called the Admiral in. "Start her," she said, eyes damp but steady. One by one, the systems came online. The ship groaned, lights flickered. And then, with a deep, resonant thunder, the engine roared. It wasn't just sound. It was resurrection. Tears welled in the Admiral's eyes. "How?" he began. Ellie smiled softly. "You all were looking for something broken." But she was never broken. Just forgotten. "My dad used to say engines have a soul. And I think this one needed someone to remember it." News of the ship's revival spread fast. But what truly caught the world's heart wasn't the technical miracle, it was the why. It was the image of a young woman, guided by memory and love, reigniting something no wrench could reach. As the Valor set sail on her mission, Ellie stood on deck beside the Admiral, wind in her hair, a Navy cap now her own. Before departing, she visited her father's grave. She laid her hand gently on the stone. "They needed you," she whispered. "So I showed up." The humanitarian mission was a resounding success, but what remained etched in the hearts of the crew and the nation was Ellie's return. Not just to the ship, but to the calling her father once lived and died for. The engine ran smoother than ever, and many swore they could feel something else on board, like the Valor had a spirit again. In the months that followed, Ellie launched a new program with the Navy, pairing young engineering students with aging ships, teaching them not just to fix but to feel, to listen to the stories in the steel, the hum beneath the hull. Her father's philosophy became her own: machines aren't just parts, they're partnerships. Sometimes, what seems broken isn't waiting to be repaired, it's waiting to be remembered. And in remembering, we don't just restore engines. We restore hope.